And welcome to the 8th session in our Trellis Seminar Series 2021. For those of you who don't know us, Trellis is the charity that supports therapeutic gardening in Scotland, with over 480 gardening groups in our network. We provide information, training, and good practice sharing. And we aim to promote the highest quality of therapeutic gardening services and enable everyone to get the best from them. You can find links to all our resources online from the Trellis homepage. Today's session is approximately 60 minutes long, and there'll be a presentation that takes about 45 minutes, and afterwards a Q&A session. So we're encouraging you to use the chat feature to ask your questions, and a member of our team, Joe, will voice the questions to our presenter after the presentation. We're going to ask you for some feedback towards the end of the session today, and we'll post a link to our survey in the chat box. During the presentation, you can click and drag the Zoom video thumbnails out of the way so that you can see the slides and enjoy the presentation. So today, it's a great pleasure and my privilege to welcome our speaker, Daniela Silva Rodriguez. And Daniela is going to talk to us about the healing garden at an orphanage in Lima, Peru. After Daniela graduated from university, she worked at the International Potato Center in Lima for 6 years, and she was responsible for the in vitro potato germplasm bank. In 1991, she started a company which produced greens, baby lettuce, rocket, watercress, spinach, and other vegetables for 3 supermarket chains in Peru. She was the CEO and quality assurance manager for 25 years. In 2013, she quit the family company to raise awareness of horticultural therapy. She qualified and founded the Horticultural Therapy Institute in Peru. And since 2016, the Institute has offered a certificate program in horticultural therapy in Spanish for the Latin American community. And in 2020, Daniela founded the Peruvian Social and Horticultural Therapy Association. Working as a horticultural therapist, she's managed the program for institutionalized children since May 2019. So with that, Daniela, I'm going to ask you to share your screen and your presentation with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I want to start by thanking Trellis for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to share my work with institutionalized children. Our program is located in Lima, Peru, in a child care institution, which was founded 102 years ago with the purpose of giving protection and shelter to children who have been abandoned or live in extreme poverty, or were victims of abuse, or have lost their parents. In 2018, I was commissioned to design a therapeutic garden for the children living in this institution. I chose this site, in spite of the looks, for the therapeutic garden because I saw great potential. It had only one entrance. I designed the garden in January 2019. Different sensory elements were incorporated to the design, like ornamental plants with different textures, colors, and aromas at the entrance, a meditation area, a water element at the center of the area with aquatic plants, raised beds with herbs, a shade area for activities, a greenhouse area for baby plants, succulent patches, pallets for vegetable garden, and green walls. In April 2019, 140 high school students from British schools from 22 countries implemented the garden. The Peruvian British schools were hosting the event. I have to mention that these schools belong to the Round Square International Network. The 22 participating schools raised the money for this garden. The garden was implemented in 2 days. Every task was meticulously planned. This is how the garden looks today. It was named the Dream Garden. The children named it. And the garden is not only used for our program sessions, but by psychologists, social workers, caregivers, and visitors. Before we started the program, we had to know the population group we were going to serve. There were several issues that had to be addressed with the program, like defiant behaviors, no limits, disruptive behaviors, self-regulation problems, cognitive problems, stress, anxiety, fear, sadness, post-traumatic stress syndrome, social problems, attention deficit disorder, among other issues. Children attend the garden twice a week for 60 minutes in groups of 5 or 6. Every day I work with 20 children. Because of the many issues that have to be addressed, we use several strategies or techniques interchangeably in every session, like conscious breathing, positive discipline, sensory stimulation, metaphors and symbolism, and Skinner's theory of behavior modification. Program goals, as you can see, are several, although many issues are common to many children, mainly lack of self-regulation. Why gardening? As Montessori recognized back in 1967, gardening has many benefits on children. This can be summarized in 3 main areas: emotional intelligence, pro-social behavior, and scientific mind. Also in the gardening is executive functioning is an important benefit, which can be enhanced through gardening. Children learn the steps to a specific task. They can initiate and complete tasks. Gardening helps divide everyday chores into small manageable tasks. In the picture, you can see one of their preferred activities, which is to create a ring using a Liriope muscari leaf. And this activity promotes concentration, attention span, and fine motor skills. The therapeutic session is based on Skinner's theory of behavior modification. This theory proposes to offer the child a stimulus, in this case, different types of materials. This stimulus will promote a response in the child, in this case, to engage in the activity. The activity has to be very interesting, of course, and magnifiers are a must because they help us to get the child's attention. When the activity is completed, the child will receive positive reinforcement and rewarded for achieving the desired response. Mainly, the rewards are watering or digging. Those are the preferred rewards. Plants help us teach the children that there is a reaction for every action. The boy you see in the picture, when we met him 8 months ago, he was unable to pay attention for more than 1 minute. He kept asking why to every phrase we said. And we answered with a question, what do you think? After 2 months, he was able to complete the activity. The first strategy we used since we started our program last July are garden rules. These are very important when working with children. We have to make the children read the rules before entering the garden. They are non-negotiable. And if the child misbehaves, we remind him of the rules as many times as necessary during the session. The second strategy we use is the emotions banner. This banner is used when the child enters the garden before he takes part of the plant activity. This will allow us to see if he is in the mood for the activity. It helps the child identify his emotional feeling, and then we ask him to find a plant in the garden with the same feeling. For example, a sad plant, a motivated plant, a happy plant, an upset plant, or a frightened plant. Here you can see one of those days when this child came to the garden feeling sorrow. So we offered him a moment of relaxation, aromatherapy. We use a lot lavender oil for this purpose. And we helped him identify what he was feeling. And then we asked him to find a plant with his same emotion. And he took action. In this case, he pruned the sad leaves and he watered the plant. This holistic approach is what makes horticultural therapy unique compared to other therapies. Another activity is identify the feelings in the body. This activity uses different color petals to identify in which part of the body they are feeling the emotion. It has been very significant for the children. It has helped many children clarify their emotions. For example, many said they felt fear in their feet because they wanted to run away. The third strategy is conscious breathing or mindfulness. It is especially important for these children to be able to appreciate silence. Conscious breathing is practiced at the beginning of the session for 5 minutes in order to bring the child's attention to the present moment and is excellent for self-regulation. The fourth strategy is sensory stimulation. Aside from the 5 basic senses we are all familiar with, other senses are stimulated in the garden. New senses are discovered and appreciated in the garden. For example, sense of control, which is very important for these children. Nurturing a plant allows the child to take responsibility on another living organism. he decides what to do with the plant. So the roles are shifted from being cared to become a carer. This way we can reduce stress, anxiety, and fear, and aside from practicing mindfulness, being in the present moment. The other sense is sense of place. The garden allows the child to feel connected to something bigger. He feels alive and he becomes aware of its place in the universe. The other sense is sense of self. In the garden, the child understands the importance of sense of self or well-being. He learns that in the garden, sensory stimulation is immediate, without the need of external stimuli. Another important sense is sense of comfort. Plants become friends and allies. They even name their plants. Child discovers that the sense of comfort, watching processes like germination, flowering, new growths, or the presence of visitors like butterflies, earthworms, or bees. Some of the activities we do for sensory stimulation in the garden are a bouquet garni, a strawberry face mask to identify the importance of sense of self or well-being, the sense of tenderness using a pennisetum leaf or a lamb's ear leaf can be offered to the child, or smelling lemon balm. The preferred herbs are lemon balm and lavender. Another area which we constantly promote is scientific investigation. Every week we choose a topic we want to investigate. These activities also promote social behavior, positive social behavior, by sharing tasks or empowerment. One child can teach another child a specific task. We have learned about the water cycle. We made rustic paper using papyrus stems. They learned how to produce hydroponic strawberries. They cultivated different varieties of potatoes in a bag. They sense textures and shapes, and they even prepare their natural dyes with leaves. The garden is also an excellent place to promote problem-solving skills. One of the things I enjoy the most when working with children is their ability to find a way to do things. I learn a lot from them. For example, one day we had a huge population of snails and a child created this snail trap. Another day, we had a small child, a 6-year-old, who was asked to fill the pots, and he was very creative, and he introduced the pot into the soil. The garden is also ideal, the ideal setting to learn concepts. For example, adaptation. Cacti can teach us how to develop adaptive mechanisms, or control. What happens when plants grow without control? At the beginning of this pandemic, the social distancing concept was introduced, and it was too abstract for the children. So we used sunflower seedlings to explain the concept. And we made them separate the plants, and we explained to them that social distancing is also needed in the plants to avoid being infected by other plants, as well as for optimum growth. And it was clearly understood. Fun and creativity are always present in the garden. As Dr. Mayuri says, We do creative activities with children. They choose what they want to do if they want. Gardening reduces stress and offers a sense of control, which abused children have lost. Gardening connects children with their senses and awakes them. And this is what we see every single day. The fifth strategy is plant anthropomorphization. The most important goal in our program is to help children cultivate a relationship with plants. To do this, we use anthropomorphization, which means to give plants human form. This helps children understand how plants function and how they function. They learn that we share common life cycles. What we do to the plant, we do to ourselves and vice versa. Metaphors are invaluable in the garden. We use metaphors every single day. It helps you make obvious concepts which are not obvious for the child. Most children have been abandoned or have problems with their biological family, so we work with baby plants to help them heal. They know that the greenhouse is the place where the baby plants grow, for example. One day we were working with 6-year-old child. We were talking about the concept of nurturing the plant with love. And the child picked up these leaves you see in the picture from the garden and said, "This heart-shaped leaf is wounded and I want to heal it with lamb's ear leaf because it's soft." So this happened like 3 months after we started the program last July. And you see that he was able to make these parallels between the garden and himself, no? We also use wildflowers as metaphors. Weeds represent negative thoughts in our brain. We have to remove them to see clearly. So we practice taking away the weeds from the garden, and we make obvious that the garden looks better without the wildflowers or the weeds. We prefer using wildflowers instead of weeds because they always ask, why do we call them weeds? In Spanish, we say mala hierba, which means bad plant. And we don't want them to use that plant. We prefer to use the metaphor that wildflowers are plants that grow without care or nurture or food. So they have developed survival mechanisms. And we ask them, would you like to grow as wildflowers do, or would you rather prefer to be nurtured? 100% of the cases, they answered, I prefer to grow nurtured. Also, we use succulents a lot. These make excellent metaphors. They can teach the children about adaptive mechanisms, survival mechanisms, how we adapt to different circumstances. We teach them how, for example, leaves in cacti have been replaced by spines. Why do cacti have spines? Why do succulents have wax on their leaves or tiny hairs, so they can survive to the harsh environment where they grow? As horticultural therapists, we have to develop certain qualities, especially when working with children. We practice Dr. Mayuri's recommendations of compassionate care. These include self-awareness. This is to be honest with myself. How do I feel working with these children? Knowledge, it is important to keep learning. Every week we learn something new and we share with our colleagues. We learn also new skills because these are important for our toolbox to be more effective, to have more options at hand. Empathy is a valuable attribute. We couldn't obtain the results we have obtained without empathy. Sincerity, this is to be honest and authentic with the child. Warmth, always show kindness and warmth. Wisdom, we have to be able to learn from our errors, and we have to be able to guide the child through the best path. Trust, we have to trust ourselves in order to transmit our confidence and resilience to the child. We have to concentrate every single day on the child when working with him. And finally, but not least important, patience, which is the most difficult quality because children are used to instant gratification. The first thing that has to take place when we start working with a client is the therapeutic relationship. This relationship or rapport is crucial, especially when working with children. For this to happen, we have to offer a session free of judgment. We have to show acceptance and warmth, show respect. Sometimes talking about our own experiences is very useful, and we have to be patient and supportive. The process is facilitated by using effective communication techniques. We promote a satisfactory relationship. We offer emotional and physical support. We help the child to understand himself, and this helps understand the whole process. In 8 months, these are the results we have achieved. The ability, the children are able to identify their emotions. They are much less aggressive. They don't dare throw stones to us. They respect the garden. They respect the garden rules. They appreciate silence. They are able to practice meditation. They have less tantrums and aggressive episodes. They have learned many gardening skills. They have learned about the life cycles and how the plant life cycles compare to human life cycles. They have learned to share their work with their pairs or the other children in their groups. They concentrate much better. Their attention span is much better. They have learned how to solve problems. At the end of the day, for example, we receive these rewards like how a group of 5, how they felt at the end of the activity. They put their 5 stones on top of the happy face, or we receive reciprocity from the child, or we receive this beautiful mud cake from some of the groups. Since I started this program, I have learned that effective horticultural therapists have to make use of every tool in their toolbox to build a positive rapport with their children and to obtain positive results. These are empathy, grounding, flexibility. This means as horticultural therapists, we have to have plan A, plan B, plan C. We have to be prepared for the unexpected when working with children. We have to be really flexible. The therapeutic dynamics is very important. All the therapeutic techniques we can learn and add to our toolbox are crucial for obtaining results. Compassionate care, as I said, is fundamental. The use of metaphors, aromatherapy, and mindfulness are all necessary tools for this practice. Finally, in the garden, transformations really take place, and we see them every week. Thank you.
Jenny, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, thank
Oh.
you. Sorry, Daniela, I was going to say thank you. What fantastic insight into the therapist role. And, you know, we learned so much there about how the therapeutic gardening works for the children. It was just, that was just amazing. Can I just put us on speaker view now, because I'm going to ask Joe to unmute and to ask the questions that have been put. And if anyone has any questions that they're thinking about just now, please pop them into the chat. I think we're all a bit wowed by what's been said. It's just amazing. So I think we'll probably take a few minutes just for people to gather their thoughts there and ask some questions. But Joe, do you have anything there?
Yes, I certainly do. Yeah, that was fabulous, Daniela.
Thank you.
First question, in 2018, when the building, was the building already being used by the orphanage, or was this a brand new site where the garden was found?
This orphanage is 102 years old. The site, the orphanage per se, is huge, but is abandoned. It is in really bad shape. As you could see in the pictures, no? That site was a mess, was like a war zone.
Yeah.
No?
Okay. Do you still have, there's a question from Joan, do you still have the planning document for the 2-day work, you know, garden implementation? Because it must be massive. It must be a big, giant document. That must have been a lot of work.
A lot of work. For the planning, yeah, I like to use Excel spreadsheets for everything. So I did all this by myself, and the surprise when I was commissioned to design this therapeutic garden by these British schools, I thought that my work was only to design the therapeutic garden, but they handled to me the entire budget, and I had to take care of the execution and everything. I had to plan everything by myself. It was a huge planning work for like 2 months ahead of the 2 April days when the students came to Peru. So it was massive, really massive.
Yes, that's a big project for 2 days worth of work. Jenny asked, what are some of the garden rules, and do any of the children question or challenge these rules? I'm quite sure that that's the case.
The rules are, for example, as you saw, the budget could not have proper floor, so we had to put pebbles, no? So at the beginning of the program in May 2019, it was fun for the children to come to the garden and throw the pebbles, and many of those ended on my head. So that was the first rule. After we saw that this practice happened during the first week, we produced this banner, and the first rule is no stones can be thrown to people or to the water feature, because that's the other place where they end up. And then that they have to use the tools correctly. They have to follow the rules or the instructions that the horticultural therapist gives. They cannot break plants or treat plants badly. And that at the beginning was very common. They used to misbehave. So during the session, we took the child back to the banner at the entrance, and it is very strategically placed at the entrance. So we took the child again to the banner and made him read the rules, no? And that took like 2 months of adjustment. And then they never misbehaved again, no?
I might try that with my children.
Yes.
Are there certain plants that the children are drawn to most? I know you mentioned a couple of the herbs, but are there other plants that, you know, they're drawn to, and for what reason do you think?
The lamb's ear. They know the lamb's ear is Ostachys byzantina is their preferred leaf, because it's tender, and we use it to caress the children, no? So sometimes when an adult comes to visit the garden, they go to the plant, they take a leaf, and they show the adult, I can give you tenderness, I can give you warmth receiving with the leaf, for example, no? They have identified their preferred plants. Some love herbs, lavender and mint, for example, or lemon balm. And they don't, when they end the session, they always take a leaf back to their house, no?
Jenny asked the question, and I think you maybe mentioned it, but are most of the sessions one-to-one, or are they done with very small group? We weren't.
Usually when we started, the children came in groups of 5 or 6, but among those groups, there were certain children that really had very, very serious issues. I had a child, for example, who was 5 years old, and he was sexually abused by his father since he was born, I think, and he was really traumatized. And I could identify this behavior. He was very aggressive to me at the beginning. And so I separated him from the group, and I started working one-on-one. The transformation on this boy is fantastic right now, no? So I really want to write a case on him. And so that happens with several groups, no? I work with, in total, 45 children, ages 5 to 17. And so when I identify a difficult case, I separate it. I work in 20-minute sessions with them, no more. Some children have really serious attention span problems, no? So I work in 20-minute sessions, and then another group comes when it's difficult.
Yeah. Okay, that answers a couple of other questions that have been put in the chat as well. So, do you find that there's a kind of general age group that respond best to time in the garden?
Not really. I'm surprised. For example, with adolescents, when they came to the garden, they were like, and these are all boys right now. I work with boys mainly, and there are girls also, but this program was designed because during the pandemic, during lockdown last year, these 45 boys were really, really aggressive. And the director of the institution called me last June, and she asked me to go to the garden and work with the children. So I was surprised at the beginning with the adolescents. They were like, the garden is not for me. I want to do graffiti or whatever. So I proposed them to use their garden as their graffiti, no? And the transformation in these adolescents is really excellent also, no? This has, I only work with a small group of adolescents. They are like 12, and some of the ones that at the beginning were not engaged with the garden or said that the garden was for women and not for girls and not for them, they have completely changed. They are now the ones that care more for their vegetable patch. They have square meter a raised bed for their vegetables.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really, I think that's a surprising one. I would think a lot of people would expect, as you say, the adolescents would be, you know, very hard to work with.
To engage, yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Do you have staff that support you at the garden, or are you?
I have one collaborator. I have one person that belongs to a friend that belongs also to, is part of the association and is part of the Institute of Horticultural Therapy. And she helps me in everything, no, in running the sessions, because it's very difficult, no? Sometimes we have to go in twos. Sometimes we have students that help us, that volunteer, or sometimes we have other people that come and volunteer, especially in maintaining the garden.
Yeah, that was a question actually from someone. I think you've got a few people wanting to come and visit you in Peru, to be honest, Daniela, help you out. Yeah, there are a few comments. We'll let you read them later, but yeah, there's a few people asked about kind of volunteering and
oh yes, for sure,
visiting.
Yeah.
So we do have some more questions, though we're not finished yet. Does the children's education in other areas improve as well? So not just their behavior and their ability to cope, but
of
their
course.
actual formal education.
Yes, their academic achievement, their academic area is enhanced by gardening. That's something you see. We have noticed, for example, that for example, taking an example of a child that he's 8 or 9 years old with cognitive problems. In the garden, we discovered that he has fantastic drawing skills, or his motor skills abilities are much better than other children, no? You can help a child learn mathematics in the garden. Make him measure leaves, make him measure petals, flowers, whatever you see in the garden. You can help the child understand concepts, no? For example, they have learned how to produce radishes, and they have eaten the radishes. They have produced strawberries. We always produce fruits and vegetables and make them taste them, so we can talk about good nutrition and why do we need good nutrition for our bodies. And how do we compare that with the plant's necessities? We can help them pronounce, some of the children have verbal issues, so we can help them verbalize using different plant names, for example, no? Or you can, the academic area is really enhanced with the garden. This is something we really have to emphasize, no? That's why I think every single school in the world should have a garden incorporated in the day-to-day work, no?
Yeah, definitely. Do you find that the children are better able to understand and manage risk as well, in terms of
Yes, they
that they just
do.
develop that skill?
Yeah, for sure. They learn. Something I have to mention is risk management and safety. I mean safety when working with children. This is a huge issue, especially if you are working with at-risk children. This was a huge, huge issue at the beginning. When we started the program, we used to put the materials for the plant activity on top of the table. And the first day, these children who were really in an emotional state, which was uncontrollable due to the pandemic, not to the lockdown, they came to the session and they took every single material and they ate the glue, they used the scissors. So after the first session, we decided to keep all our tools, especially the tools, the glue, the tools, on our bodies. So we have these aprons where we put all of our tools and we keep them safe. No, you cannot put them on the table since the beginning of the session. First, we changed the dynamics. We started explaining why we were there, which was the goal for the day, and then very slowly we gave them the materials. No, that was a huge safety issue.
Another question, lots of people totally wowed and inspired by this project. Sally asks, do you have plans to extend your work elsewhere in Lima, or are there other similar projects happening in Peru that you're involved in or aware of?
I wish. I feel, I consider myself an octopus. As you can imagine, I am the only Peruvian raising awareness on horticultural therapy in my country and in Latin America. In Latin America, fortunately, there are other countries that are starting to raise awareness. But in Peru, this is a completely new concept. In many Latin American countries, this is new. I work by myself. I have no organizations backing me up. And I wish I could do so much more, especially for mental health. No, I've worked with cancer patients. I have worked with burnt children. This is a huge issue here in Peru. There are many, many, many burnt children. I have worked in children's hospitals. I mean, I've been working in horticultural therapy for the past 11 years, and I try to raise awareness everywhere. It's not easy. I have been insulted by psychologists because they think this is my therapy and this is not my therapy. This is a very old therapy. So it's a slow path. It's a difficult path. Yes, I would like to find funding and do more gardens and help more people. So any suggestions are welcome, very welcome.
Yeah, yes, you need to be cloned as well, Daniela. That's what we need. There's certainly a couple of questions that have come in about, funding. How is the project funded just now? but also, you know, is it something that the government would fund in terms of these kind of projects? No.
Unfortunately, the government does not help this institution with 1 penny, and they cannot pay me. So right now I am trying to look for funding to keep my project and the program going. I cannot leave the children alone. We have achieved a lot, and the psychologists know that, and they need me, and I love working with them. And so I have a donation button in our web. We produce, we have certain things we can sell to raise money. We are doing all we can do to raise money, no? So that's it. We have to go on in spite of the difficulties.
Well, we hope to keep our fingers crossed for that one, Daniel. It would be absolutely awful if you weren't able to continue the work. It's brilliant. Someone has asked, do you have a website? So we will make sure that everybody that was is on the seminar gets that kind of information, kind of links that can find out more.
Sure.
There's just a couple of other questions. I think someone's asked about children handling tools, but I think you kind of covered that in the kind of risk management bit. Yeah, someone asked, do they have their own veg bed? When you talked about the square meter, is that one that they share, or is that one to themselves?
We have done that with the adolescents, with the 12 adolescents. We gave them the raised bed, there's 1 square meter raised bed, and they are responsible for their bed, no? With the smaller children, what we use, because also during our sessions, we raise awareness on not using or reusing plastic materials. So we use bottles and cans and whatever we find, and we can detergent cans also, or the jars, no? So they have their small pot, no? And they name it. They love putting a name to their pot and name their plant, and they have their own vegetable patch, but in a small container, no? Not the raised bed.
A film, yeah, okay. One last question, it's one from me. What inspired you to become a horticultural therapist in the first place?
I lost my father when I was 8 years old. My father died at 36 from an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm. And I grew in a farm at the beginning, and then we came to Lima to attend school. And we went to live with my Italian grandmother, who had a huge garden. And I love plants since I can recall, 8 years old, 8.5. I really have a lot of knowledge on plants and gardening, and and my entire life has been dedicated to plants. I studied biology and environmental science, and then I studied plant breeding, and I've always worked with plants, no? And the turning point was in 2013 or 2011, when psychologist here in Peru opened a rehab clinic, and he asked me to build a greenhouse and nursery to work with his patients. And I worked there for 3 years pro bono. I learned a lot, and I then started investigating and researching, and I got my certificate at the Horticultural Therapy Institute in Denver, and then from the Canadian Horticultural Therapy Association. And I love what inspires me is that I like the shine in the people's eyes when they work with plants, no? And I have seen really fantastic transformations, especially in people who suffer from depression, no? You can help them alleviate their depression and get back to normal life, no? Much faster than with other people. And that keeps me going. Although I don't have a salary, I live raising money from where I can, no? I design gardens, I do landscaping, and that's my part-time job also, no? So I really love it. I really love it.
Brilliant. I think somebody summed it up here and said, wow, absolutely mind-blowing. You're an amazing lady. And thank you for taking the time out to be with us.
Thank you very much for
That's all our
listening
questions,
me.
Daniela.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Daniela. We can't top that. Just want to say thank you to everyone for attending today and listening to Daniela. That's terrific. If you can hover over your reactions button, we'll be able to give Daniela a round of applause and show her appreciation. Thank you so much. It's brilliant.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for letting me share my experience.
Oh, we're very honored, Daniela. Thank you. So thank you to everyone who has already donated to Trellis. If you've enjoyed today's session, please consider making a donation to Trellis. We'll also put up or send out Daniela's link to her website, and perhaps you might consider making a donation to her as well. That would be great.
Daniela's put it up, I think.
Oh, haven't Daniela? That's marvelous. Oh, well, find that in the chat, everybody. That's a lovely thing. That's a lovely thing to do. So, as well as that, you might be interested in our plastic-free gardening book offer. It's on offer this week, and there's a link in the chat to that too. And last but not least, I'm going to bring this session to a close. Hopefully we may see you at some of our future sessions this week. There's lots to choose from on the website. Please have a look and see what you'd like to join us in. So I'm just going to say thank you very much and goodbye from all the Trellis team and Daniela.
Thank you very much. Nice seeing you all.
Thank you. You too. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.